Now, this is a documentary about evolution. It's a different way of understanding evolution. I will start this documentary by saying that stupidity is not a character. Stupidity is a disease, and like all other diseases, it can be cured, but it can be cured only through knowledge. The problem of knowledge is the fact that though it is available for everyone, nevertheless, through a democratic system that we live in, this kind of knowledge is filtered and given only through different ways to different people. When children go to the school, they have to understand and learn certain things. Much of that is not truly related to what we could understand as knowledge. To know, for example, that China could produce magnesium, which is 20 million tons, for example, in a year, or that X plus Y equals Z square, is not truly knowledge, especially in a world we live right in now where the entire system is falling down. The entire world is falling down, and knowledge as such would not truly help. Learning marketing, business, how to move merchandise from one area to another for sole profit is not knowledge. Books have been written, lectures have been given, universities have been opened to teach marketing and business. In a way, and an ability as well, to be able to take one merchandise from one place to another place and earning only money. The entire world, the entire axis actually is working, is moving around and through the object and through the idea of money. 4 years ago, when I was sitting in Laos studying my physics, I realized, for example, that black holes cannot be an eternal fact, cannot be a phenomena that could, as physicists at that time described it, to become or to be a singularity. Something that stayed and had been staying there all the time. I realized, more or less, that my only measurement of time is the lifespan that I have and the lifespan of other people that passed by through the last 2,000 years. It means that all the knowledge that I can have, all the knowledge that I can read about, comes from people who wrote about things, about phenomena, described certain behaviors, described certain things that took place in galaxies, in celestial spheres, in the world, in human nature, in human psyche, but they describe it only through the span of 2,000 years. That time, that amount of time is not enough to be able to understand what could have happened for the last, for example, 14 billion years since the Big Bang, or for the last 4.5 billion years since the beginning of this earth, or even for the last 3.2 million years where Lucy, the first bond of human evolution, started someplace somewhere in Africa. That point is an extremely important point because, as I said, the span of my life is the only measure, the only reference that I have to be able to understand things. And that will not work to be able to understand a phenomena that takes place in space for much longer time than ever. The only way I was able to understand that black holes have to disappear, have to dissolve, is the fact that nothing could last with a negative energy as such without, through time, a long time, to be dissolved and to become a part of a universal balance that in one way or another had to take place. It's exactly like throwing a bucket of water someplace somewhere, and while this water is all the way up to a certain corner, at one point it had to fall down. But if we assume that my perception can only realize the fact that that water had been at the point far up in that room or on that place where I had thrown it, then I will always realize, or I will think, I would assume that that water would have been there and would stay there all the time.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. So, but if I have enough span of time, and if I would be able to understand that water would go in the room and go all the way up and then go all the way down, if I have enough time to realize that water would be able to have that sense of motion, then I would be able to understand that at one point, that high point where the water had been must fall down and some sort of a balance must take place. Now, here, again, if we take the same principle of time, if we take the same measurement of how we measure time, according to one human lifespan, I'm standing here and in my background there is this amazing fountain that had been there maybe for the last 500 years, since Arabs have been here in Spain, in Granada, or as we say in Arabic, Granada. Nevertheless, our human mind would assume again and again that that fountain will stay there and will stay here forever. We assume because it is made out of rock. We assume because people pass in and out every single day. We assume because there are trees and there are everything. We assume in this way that it will last forever. But in fact, it does not. If you look, for example, at the old Egyptian empire, if you look at the old Chinese one, if you look, for example, at the Roman one, there had been so many fountains, bridges, castles, edifices, greater things that had been constructed, and now they do not exist anymore. At that time, everyone thought that the Roman Empire will be eternal, that the Egyptian Empire will be eternal, and it goes on, but in fact it does not. Everything lives and dies. Everything has to go through a circle. Everything has to go through a wave. Now, but there are certain things that we cannot bring back. Now, in the year 2010, we have to understand that half the amount of energy, half the amount of oil that this earth took 500 million years to create is gone. That is a source of energy that we cannot produce. It is finished. And yet, we, like a child who's suddenly been given a lot of sweets to eat, had consumed as much and as fast as possible everything he had. We had never been able to be aware of the fact that whatever resources we have should be taken more or less in a more logical and conservative way. We will not be able at all to maintain the city. All what we see around here in 20, 30, 40 or 50 years will disappear for good.